What's up, my beautiful people? Back again with another daily dose of Reddit Hope and Happy, because right now, who doesn't need a bit of both? Going back into r/AskReddit again today to talk about some ridiculous and downright hilarious HR complaints, so let's get to it. Okay, so the AskReddit question was, HR employees of Reddit, what was the most ridiculous/hilarious complaint you ever received? And I did this one about 7 or 8 months ago, so I apologize if some of these are repeats. Was once asked to investigate a sexual harassment situation where 3 different women were coming on to a male coworker throughout their shift. I took down the details, got their names, easy peasy investigation. Or so I thought. A week later, nobody by these descriptions or names had ever worked for the company. I decided to talk to the gentleman again. After a lengthy conversation where things didn't quite stack up, I asked him how these women communicated with him. I kid you not, with a straight face, he looks me in the eye and replies, telepathically, like I'm some kind of idiot. I had never sent an employee for psychological evaluation up to that point, and I hope never to have to do so again. So yeah, I was asked by a delusional schizophrenic to conduct a sex harassment investigation on the voices inside his head. That had to be like the most awkward and yet interesting HR meeting I could ever imagine. Telepathically? I mean, frick. That's a career highlight that you tell people about later. Oh, that's freaking crazy. I'm not an HR, but someone called HR on me. I work with a few people who aren't all that fluent in English. One of my coworkers was trying to explain to me what kind of tacos he ate and could not remember the word for stingrays. So he took my notebook and drew a picture of a stingray and wrote the word turtle. So it looked like this crudely drawn stingray plus the word turtle. A lady I work with went through my notebook, saw the picture of the stingray plus the word turtle. She called HR because she thought I was writing notes about her in my notebook. She said that horribly drawn stingray plus the word turtle meant I wanted to punch her in the face because she is slow like a turtle. Definitely a reach. I didn't get in trouble. I was just told by my boss that I'm not allowed to talk about turtles anymore in case it upsets her. I rarely talk about turtles, so this isn't really a problem for me. Edit, I'm still relatively new to Reddit, so I'm not sure if this is an acceptable way to do this, but I'm just going to edit the original post to answer everybody's burning question. He was not eating stingray/turtle tacos at work. He was telling me that that was his favorite type of taco to eat when he was at home. He's originally from Mexico and is in Iowa on a TN visa. Maybe in his coastal Mexican town, it's normal to eat stingrays and turtles? I have no idea, really. All I know is I couldn't help him in the slightest when he asked me if I knew where to get stingray meat. Is that even something you can get in the States? Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they're on an endangered species list or anything like that. But at the same time, it's I've never seen stingray offered anywhere. Also, now I'm very curious what it tastes like. I'd imagine like fish. I told my coworker as professionally as I could that it wasn't appropriate for her to be using her phone while at work teaching kids, supposedly. She spent all her time on Facebook. Little kids would be screaming and wailing on each other literally 10 feet away, and she was totally oblivious. She complained by email to HR that I was rude and confrontational. They pulled me aside and told me to be more careful about how I spoke to coworkers. I told them my side of the story. They spoke to her again. She got a written warning, and they didn't tell me what happened, but I gathered from office gossip that she lost her mind and started shouting at the HR staff. Rude and confrontational, perhaps? Anyway, she's on her final warning now, and she has a habit of hitting on the married dads of our kids, involving children and adult matters. Why hasn't your mummy paid for your fees yet? Don't you want to come to daycare? And generally being an unprofessional, self-absorbed jerk. So, can't wait until she gets fired. Can't say I blame you on that one. A girl I worked with used to get crap from the other girls behind her back for snacking all day. She'd have multiple pots of nuts and dried fruit, and it got to a point where she'd sit there making sandwiches. I wonder how far it would have escalated if she wasn't eventually terminated for poor performance. What, would she just bring in all the stuff to make a sandwich and then just do that right there at her desk? All day? What? You wouldn't believe the headaches that I received when management signed a new copier/printer lease, which reduced the overall number of printers in exchange for centrally located multiplex copiers. Evidently, people feel their social standing is signified by if they have a printer or two in their office. My favorite was an executive assistant who stated that because she wears heels to work, she couldn't walk to the new copier and requested that a reasonable accommodation would be to replace the printer she had in her office. My gosh, I hate office politics like this. Man, I'm glad I'm self-employed. Frick. Anyways though, if you've got a similar story to one of these, or if you happen to know what stingray or turtle meat tastes like, go ahead and drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm really actually quite curious as to what those do taste like. I was the one being complained about. A patient had asked if it was okay to remove her IV fluids because she was going home. She was one of those people who was very convinced that if we took her fluids out, she would die. She was admitted for the common cold and uses her insurance to pay like this, so she didn't have to spend a dime. Anyway, I told her that it's okay, ma'am. We're just running regular saline water through your IV. No more meds. You can go home and we can take that out. Get a notice from HR the next day saying I wasn't using proper medical terminology for IV fluids. HR didn't do crap. They just tossed the complaint at me without asking questions, as they probably should have. I worked in HR and my coworker hated me. She wanted someone else to get the job I did, so she would complain about me to management for anything. The final straw for everyone was when I sneezed and she slammed her keyboard on her desk, basically ran out of the room, and didn't come back for 30 minutes. Management called me in and said I was making too much noise. I told them I sneezed, and they said she would complain about me every day, so they didn't believe her, but had to make it look like they were doing something. She left shortly after. Not HR, but I used to work on an order packaging line for a large distributor. If we had an issue with any equipment on the line, we weren't permitted to correct it on our own. We were supposed to turn on a light similar to what you'd see over a cashier's line in a grocery store, and one of the leads would come over to see what was wrong and fix it. Suddenly, I have an issue with my printer, and since I already caught crap for not following procedure on it before, I figured I'd try to do as told so I didn't get my wrist slapped again. Go to turn my light on, and imagine that, it doesn't work either. Yelled the lead's name to get his attention since we weren't supposed to wander away from the line either. Next day, I was called into HR for shouting the lead's names. One of the clowns on the line beside me didn't approve of my shouting. Well, what else are you supposed to do in that situation? I mean, I guess you could have someone turn on their light and then direct them to you, but that seems like a bit of a hassle. Not to mention I could see bureaucracy dictating that that's something they'd get written up for. It was lunchtime and a client came in. My colleague was eating a sausage roll and had it on his desk. Next day, a formal complaint came through about my colleague's sausage roll and how unprofessional it was of him to have a sausage roll he was eating on his desk. Yes, how dare he have lunch? Oh no, anything but that. How dare he have lunch at his desk? Some people. Not an HR rep, but I do work in the produce department with a lazy, useless coworker. He will complain to HR about anything and everything. We had a new team lead start, and he's trying to get everyone to work a little harder, make a name for himself and whatnot. So one day, this coworker is filling apples but doesn't go through them or rotate. Team lead comes up and asks him if he rotated, and coworker says yes. Team lead asks, then why are there cold apples on top of warm ones? Newer apples obviously came from the cooler. Coworker literally drops the box in his hand and rushes upstairs to HR. Edit, since so many want closure, I'll try to do my best. He cries to HR at least once every other week. It's always about stupid stuff, so they never really tell him what he wants to hear. They just spend time listening to his problem and say they will talk to the people responsible. They never follow up because no one is doing anything HR worthy besides him wasting company time. He was once on the sales floor digging for gold in his ear and a customer wrote a complaint to corporate. He tried to go to HR about our manager for showing him the complaint and saying that his ear itched and what was he supposed to do. They told him, obviously, go to the bathroom, itch, and then wash your hands. You're working with food, for crying out loud. Also not HR related, but this guy and I share the same name. He is the equivalent to a Walmart greeter because of how little work he gets done and how much talking he does. Many managers have tried to address this, but it's almost impossible to get fired where we work. He will get customer compliments every week. Some of them are literally word for word every week. The thing is, the ones that aren't the same wording are usually mine. We work in the same department, but I do different things than him. For every compliment we receive, we're supposed to get a $5 food coupon we can use in the store. I haven't received one of those in at least 4 or 5 years because he always says they're his. If I try to argue, he will literally look at the customer's name on the compliment form and say, "Oh, me and Andy have been friends for years. I know this one is for me." OP, I feel for you. But seriously, he gets called out by his manager and rushes to go to HR? I mean, really? Again, glad I'm self-employed. My HR department once fell for a phishing email and sent everyone's W-2s to a random hacker. HR then informed everyone via a mass email with no red receipts at 9 p.m. on a Friday, even though multiple people were on vacation and had left instructions to be called in an emergency. When I got back from my trip a week later and expressed my concern about her not actually notifying me about this, she totally brushed it off. I said, "Do you realize that I need to freeze my credit and I'm 7 days late in doing so?" She said, "No, don't freeze your credit. You won't be able to use your credit cards if you do." Another time, during a workers' comp claim, I needed to speak to our claims adjuster and she said, "An adjuster doesn't get assigned until after the claim is settled." That is the exact opposite of how that works. She was my stupid complaint. 9 p.m. on a Friday. 9 p.m. on a Friday. When you've sent out every single person's W-2 information, including their social security number. Every one of those people now has to sign up for a LifeLock or something like that because you done screwed up. 9 p.m. on a Friday. Oh my gosh, what? There's more funny and uplifting AskReddit content at the link on the left, or if you want to see the video YouTube thinks is right for you, go ahead and click the link on the right. Now you guys stay safe, stay healthy, I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, I'm Exile451. Stay beautiful, people.